one-sided, biased show, nothing funny at all. Equal time for us? We'll get into what he means by equal time a little bit later. The big question now is President-elect Trump going to continue to make the media a real issue? Or is this all just a big distraction? Would he rather have people talking about his tweets than about the various controversies he's facing and his conflicts of interest involving his businesses? Joining me now to discuss all of this, Charles Blow, CNN political commentator and columnist for the New York Times, Selena Zito, CNN contributor and national political reporter, and Ben Shapiro, editor-in-chief of thedailywire.com. Welcome to all three of you. Charles, do you believe this is a strategy by President-elect Trump? Does he purposely post these sorts of things, get people all riled up in order to distract people from real controversies?
Not necessarily. I mean, I just think it's a compulsion. He really, I mean, he's consumed. What you have to remember is this is a guy from Queens who wanted to be in New York City. His whole kind of social orbit is the New York City orbit, right? So that's why he still kind of positions himself in New York City media. That's why he attacks the New York Times. That's why he attacks SNL. That's why he's attacking a Broadway show. The New York Times put together this amazing list of all the people he'd attacked. Take a look at that list and see how many of those personalities are people who are right here in New York City. It's almost as if he's not completely moved into the realm of being president of the entire United States. He's still obsessed about New York City, and then that includes New York City media.
Well, Selena, you've been talking to voters about this, actually asking them about Hamilton this weekend. Do voters where you are in Pennsylvania and Ohio, do they care about this Hamilton controversy?
Well, I went out into Youngstown, Ohio yesterday and talked to a number of voters, and I specifically talked to Democrats who voted for Clinton and asked them how they felt about it. And while they had no problem with the speech that was given afterwards, they did have a problem with the booing. They thought it was disrespectful, and that they think that more respect should have been shown to him as a guy just going to see a play.
So booing by the audience members when Pence walked into the room. Let me pull up, of course, Trump's famous Twitter feed here. And let's pull up one of his tweets from yesterday about this. We can put it on screen, one of his first comments about this controversy. He said the following. He said, "Our wonderful future VP Mike Pence was harassed last night at the theater by the cast of Hamilton, cameras blazing." And then he said, "This should not happen." He's not talking about the booing there. He's talking about the cast member's message. Ben, I read something like that, Donald Trump saying this should not happen, and I think that has a chilling effect for artistic expression. After all, these performers were up on stage, they were performing art, even when they were speaking to the Vice President-elect. Do you agree?
Oh, well, I mean, it isn't my favorite thing.
Sorry, Ben, go ahead.
I'm sorry, it isn't my favorite thing, and I would recommend that, you know, conservatives who look at President Trump doing this, President-elect Trump doing this, and saying, well, it seems okay to me, just imagine if the shoe were on the other foot for a second and it were Barack Obama lecturing NASCAR fans if he got booed at some sort of NASCAR event. You know, it doesn't seem totally appropriate for the President-elect of the United States to be doing this. On the other hand, you know, I would recommend that the media sort of take a second look at how much focus they put on things like this, because the fact is that if you're going to turn it all the way up to 11 on a Hamilton tweet, yeah, this is going to be a long presidency for all of you.
Is that what you think happened on Saturday and again today? We've turned it up to 11?
Yeah, I think that you guys have been. I think the mainstream media has been at 11 since the election, and I think that you know that means that there's no place to turn it from there. I mean, this is sort of the problem in the 2016 election. I think there are a lot of aspersions cast at Mitt Romney. And then when you came back in 2016 and cast the same aspersions at Donald Trump, who's a very different candidate, a lot of people just tuned it out. I really think that the media is in danger of blowing its credibility if they're going to be so exuberant about covering every aspect of Trump's foibles, because there are going to be some things he does that are actually probably not very good, and you're going to want people to pay attention to it. And if you pay the same amount of attention to a Hamilton tweet that you do for example, something I think is significantly more troubling, you know, President-elect Trump meeting with business partners from India while he's the President-elect, you know, that seems to me something where you ought to be putting more focus if you're going to actually, you know, point out problems here.
Charles, do you agree?
I think you have to just constantly call out everything. But
doesn't that raise, as Ben saying, raise the volume to 11 at all times?
Yeah, but I'm so personally offended by so much of what he does. And it, you know, you make a really strong point about, you know, artistic expression and allowing that to live and breathe and not try to put your thumb on the scale of that as the president of the United States. That's a real point. That is not a small thing, right? And as a person who lives here in New York City, who goes to Broadway, who's gone to see Hamilton, and it is not overrated, it is actually a great show.
I do think Donald Trump needs to go and see Hamilton. By the way, I'm very serious. I think he needs to go and see Hamilton.
But you know, I think that there's a real need for all of us to put constant pressure on this man to make him live up to the ideals of the presidency itself. And I'm obviously an opinion journalist. I'm not a straight news reporter, and they have a different mission as a straight news reporter. But people like me, the country needs us right now to put pressure on him, because we have to make him be the president. He is going to be president for 4 years, and he has to conform to that in some way. He can't do things like this and not have it called out. It just can't happen.
So let me ask you, do you buy that? I mean, one of the reasons why you're here with us, one of CNN's newest contributors, is that you had a much better understanding of what was going on in voters' minds during the election season. You were speaking with voters in the Rust Belt on a daily basis. I'm really thankful CNN's brought you on board as a contributor, because we need to hear much more from voices outside D.C. and New York and the Acela corridor. So let me ask you, do you think folks out there, outside the New York, D.C. bubble, do believe that they need journalists right now? Do they believe in what we think here on CNN?
Well, I think that, and thank you for that nice introduction, but I do think that that's important, and that was sort of missed in this election cycle, that they didn't think that people not just were talking to them, because plenty of reporters went into events in Ohio and Pennsylvania and Michigan, but being there and living there and listening to them, I think that was the most important component that we need to learn from this election, is listening to everyone, and I think this is a good start.
Well, they want to be heard, but do those voters, do ordinary voters who probably haven't seen Hamilton, do they care about journalists trying to stand up and be more adversarial in this moment and hold the president-elect accountable, or does all of that just come across as media bias?
Well, it's not just media bias. I think when you look at Trump's most recent tweets, it's not just really about media, but it's about pop culture and culture's perception of America outside of New York City, right? So they like that tension. I think that even though, and back to your thing about standing up to Trump, I think viewers and voters always expect reporters, even if they don't like what we do, to challenge the status quo and to challenge power, because our job is to bring them the news and have them understand what is happening.
To challenge power.